berawal dari Batamang, baru batu panggil sayang. Awal-awal tanya makanya di mana dah desa. Kalau ngamara tabudu tani mau ngamara tu. Buka budu dan lebih ngana balas alet yudu. Bilang pa mama mantu kita sosiat kasih tu. Bilang pa mama mantu kita budu datang lebih.
Hello guys, Assalamualaikum to Miss Era and all my fellow friends. Today I, Muhammad Irsyad, and my group members Anis Nabila and Aina Syahada will be presenting about the simplest invertebrates. Are you ready? Let's go. Okay, so in this video we are only explain about simplest invertebrates such as sponges, sterniferous and cnidarians. So after you finish watch this video, you will be able to explain why sponges are considered to be a simplest animals, and then you will be able to discuss how a sponge respires, feeds and reproduce, and also you will be able to compare the anatomical features of sterniferous to those of cnidarians such as hydras. Okay, the first simplest invertebrates that we will discuss is sponges. Okay, sponges are the only animal that lack of true tissue such as muscle and nervous tissues. They have only cellular level of organization. They also have only a few cell types, which is scalar cells. And lastly, they lack the nerve and muscle cells. So this will show you the sponges is the simplest animals. Next, we'll go to the characteristic of sponges. First characteristic of sponges is sponges have a canal system of pores which allows water move through their bodies. Do you know what is the canal system of pores? Okay, don't worry, I will tell you. The canal system of pores works when water flows through the pores into the central cavity, and then water will flow out through the upper opening of the body, which is osculum. The interior of canal is lined with flagellate cells, resemble goanoflagellates, which is we could see the purple one. These cells are called collar cells or psoas. These cells are called collar cells or goasonite. These cells are called collar cells or goanocytes. As we could see, all collar cells consist of flagellum or flagella. The beating of flagella produce water currents which flow through the pores into the central cavity and out through the osculum, the upper of the opening body. Sponges are able to acquire the oxygen they need from cellular respiration by diffusion of this water. Okay, the next of characteristic of sponges is a sessile filter feeder. Sessile means the sponges cannot move from one place to another place, and also called a suspension feeder. It filters suspend particle from the water by means of straining device. The pores of the wall and microvilli making up the collar of collar system.
Kau kenapa ni?
The collar cells. Microscopic food particles that pass between the microvilli are engulfed by the collar cells and digested by them in food vacuole. Next characteristic of sponges is the skeleton of sponge prevent the body from collapsing. There are two skeletons of sponge. first is spongine that have tough fiber and a modified collagen. The second skeleton is spiculus. Spiculus is small needle-shaped structure. Spiculus type used to classify sponge such as bony sponge, glass sponge, and spongine sponge.
Apa tengok-tengok?
Today I will be representing you guys about how sponge reproduce.
Apa kau ni?
So today I will present to you guys how sponge respire. So sponge respire through diffusion, which is the beating of flagella will produce water, and the oxygen from the water will diffuse into the cell and give the oxygen to the sponge. And there are also other waste products like carbon dioxide and ammonia that will diffuse out of the cell into a central cavity and out of osculum. The second one is how sponge feeds. So the sponge feeds. A sponge is a sessile filter feeder, also called as suspension feeder. So sessile means cannot move. It's just static like that. And filter feeder mean that they filter food from the water using their choanocyte. It filters suspended particles from the water by means of a straining device, in this case, the pores and the flagella of the collar cells. Microscopic food particles that pass between the flagella and microvilli are engulfed by the collar and digested by them in food bubbles. So here is the example of how sponge feeds. First, stuck in water and plankton through the ostia. The second one is plankton gets trapped by the collar cell, and the third one is water exits through the osculum. The third one is how sponge reproduce. So sponge can be reproduced in two ways, which is asexually reproduction and sexually reproduction. So asexually reproduction is the sponge produced by fragmentation or by budding. During budding, a small protuberance appears and gradually increases in size until a complete organism forms. Budding produces colonies of sponge that can become quite larger. So here you can see the example that the sponge will grow bigger and bigger, and then it will fall off and produce a new sponge. Sexual reproduction is when eggs and sperm are released into a central gravity, and the zygote are developed into the central cavity, and the zygote develops into a flagellated larva which may swim to a new location. And the fourth that I'm going to present today is about Ctenophora. So Ctenophora is known as comb jellies. It is solitary, which is it's single, and mostly free-swimming marine invertebrates that are usually found in warm water. You can look the picture of Ctenophora here. The characteristic of Ctenophora is it propelled by cilia and range in size from a few centimeter to 1.5 meter. Body made up of transparent jelly-like substances called mesoglia. You can look at the picture here. And most Ctenophora catching their prey by using sticky adhesive cells called coloblasts. It is because most of Ctenophora, they do not have stinging cells, so they have this to catch their prey. And some ctenophores are bioluminescent, which is mean that they're able to produce their own light. And Ctenophora also contain DNA sequences.
Next, we will be discuss about what is cynidrians. So, here are 5 examples of cynidrians, which are jellyfish, coral, hydra, sea plants, and also sea anemone.
So, the cynidrians is a tubular or bell-shaped animals that reside mainly in shallow coastal water. However, some freshwater brackish and oceanic forms are known. The cynidria is derived from the presence of specialized stinging cells called cnidocytes. Each cnidocyte has a full-filled capsule called a nematocyte. Nematocyte has long, sparely coiled and hollow tree. body of cnidaриans consists of two-layer sac. Outer tissue layer is a protective epidermis derived from ectoderm. The inner tissue layer is derived from endoderm, secretes digestive juices into internal cavity that we call as gastrovascular cavity. Gastrovascular cavity function in digestion of food and circulation of nutrients. The full-filled gastrovascular cavity serves as a supportive hydrostatic skeleton, and it offers some resistance to the contractions of muscle but permits flexibility. The body forms of cnidaриans. The mouth of polyp is directed upward, as we can see in the diagram, and while the mouth of medusa or the jellyfish is directed downward. The tissue layers are separated by mesoglia, then polyp, and tentacles are concentrated on the margin of the bell. At one time, both body forms may have been a part of the life cycle. When both are present, the animal is dimorphic. Cnidaриans also have their own diversity. So the first one is sea anemones. Most sea anemones range in size from 0.5 to 20 centimeters in length and 0.5 to 10 centimeter diameter. Sessile polyp that lie attached to the submerged rocks, timbers, and other substance. They are also so colorful. Upward turned oral discs contain the mouth. It is also surrounded by a large number of hollow tentacles. Next, for the corals, it encased in a calcium carbonate limestone house. The polyp can extend into the water to feed on microorganisms and retreat into the house of safety. Some also laterality, majority live in colonies that vary in shape from rounded to branching. Animals that build coral reef, then they also exhibit elaborate geometric designs and also stunning colors. The hydrozoan has a dominant polyp stage. Hydra is a hydrozoan and so is a Portuguese man of war. You might think that the Portuguese man of war is an odd-shaped medusa, but actually it is a colony of polyps. The original polyp become a gas-filled float that provide buoyancy, keeping the colony afloat. Other polyps, which got from this one, are specialized for feeding or for reproduction. A long, single tentacle armed with numerous nematocytes arise from the base of each feeding polyp. Swimmer who accidentally come upon a Portuguese man of war can receive painful, even serious injuries from these stinging tentacles. In true jellyfish, the medusa is the primary stage and the polyp remain small. Their zooplankton depends on tides and currents for their primary means of movement. The type of cnidaриans is a hydra. So, hydra are likely to be found attached to the underwater plants or rocks. The body of hydra is small, tubular polyp. The cell of epidermis are termed epithelial muscular cell, and it contains muscle fiber. Nematocytes contain cnidocyte and also sensory cell. Sensory cells make contact with nerve cells within a nerve man. The interconnected nerve cells are allowed the transmission of impulse in several directions at once. And in the diagram, we can show that the anatomy of hydra. The body of hydra can contract or extend. The tentacles that ring the mouth can reach out, grab prey, and also discharge nematocytes. It also reproduces asexually by forming buds. Sperm from testes swim to an egg within an ovary. The embryo is encased within a hard, protective shell that allows it to survive. Interstitial cells of the epidermis are capable of becoming other types of cell, for example, ovary or testes. And lastly is comparisons of anatomical features between ctenophores and cnidarian. Ctenophores refers to a phylum to coelentrates, which consists of comb jellies, live exclusively in marine habitats, swim by comb plates, contain a complete digestive system, show less diversity, exhibit a viridial symmetry. For the cnidarians, refers to a phylum containing invertebrates with specialized stinging structure in the tentacles that surround mouth. Live in both freshwater and marine habitat. Sessile or free swimming, contain an incomplete digestive system, highly diversified animals, and also exhibit a radial symmetry.
Kita bujur dan love you, ngana balas I love you too. Bilang pa mama mantuk, kita so siap.